Hello everybody. It's me, Sacred G, going over more Cretosis videos. Or not videos, but video. This time I have everything open so you don't have to watch me go through all that. Or go do all this. So we were talking about where we left off. Cretosis made the point. Hold on. Think he was... So I gotta remember this point. It was about the junk. I'm pretty sure this is the argument we're on. Is the junk? Oh yeah, and then Cretosis went into the argument that even though... Or, no, John brought in the Pete Hines interview that happened before the game came out. So, yeah. And I said that, you know, the reason why Fallout 4 isn't, in my opinion, this is more of a theory, is in a shit state, is because people don't care. Pardon me, but I believe that could be the case. But yeah,
years,
here we go.
In which the setup to the story is once again trying to find a missing family member. And funnily enough, the story is once again about the Brotherhood going to war with some technologically advanced rival.
I think it's about them evolving in Fallout 4. Could be mistaken, I'm not going to note that, but I think that's what it is.
Except this time it's synthetic people instead of the Enclave. Like, yeah, Bethesda realized that plants exist and put them into Fallout 4, so the wasteland isn't quite as grim as a world that entirely lacks any kind of naturally growing food, and everything should be dead as a result. But otherwise, they're very similar games in that sense. It's also worth mentioning that Fallout 4 was never going to be a direct sequel to Fallout 3. Bethesda has never done...
It has characters from Fallout 3. How do you... Okay, yeah, I to a degree I could get to where he's coming at, because they're not like solely this is what happened before, this is the aftermath. It's not like that. You basically can play any of these games without even needing to play the first two in order to get it. I get that. But Fallout 4 has several Fallout 3 characters in Fallout 4. I think her name is Sierra Petrovita from Nuka World. And McCready. Who else? I know there's a couple of others. Oh, Dr. Lee. There's a few others I'm pretty sure as well, but let's not get into that.
...on direct follow-ups to their games before. Fallout 4 was never going to be the capital wasteland however many years down the line.
No shit, man. This is how each fucking Fallout game tends to be. They're all different from one another. It'd be stupid if Bethesda made Fallout 4 set in the capital wasteland again. Then I'd understand a lot of the complaints. They wouldn't all be the same. It'd be like, why did Bethesda choose the capital DC again? But they didn't.
Because it's long been Bethesda's standard to change locations in each game. What he's describing here is nothing new. This has always been Bethesda's process. They routinely change the location and retool, remove, or add different mechanics and systems to their games with each iteration.
Which is not a bad thing. It keeps them busy. Not only that, it introduces new things that we can taste and test. That we get a taste, I mean. And if we don't like the way it tastes, then you're not obligated to like it.
It is nothing new for them. It's standard procedure.
And that's bad how?
For example, between Morrowind and Oblivion, changes included, but were not limited to, dialogue, skills, combat, and spells.
The fuck does Oblivion and Morrowind have anything to do with the argument at hand? Did John bring this shit up? The only thing I'm critiquing John for so far is him bringing up Fallout 3 again. But other than that, this is an unnecessary comparison. Yeah, it's made by the same people, but guess the fuck what? Guess the fuck what? They're different games, and they set out to achieve different things. Now, if Fallout 4 had Skyrim's leveling system, then I can understand. To a degree. Well, I would not be able to understand, but they didn't. It's different. It's with the fucking comparison.
As well as taking place in a different province. Saying Fallout 4 changed some of these things, as if it's something new and special that Bethesda is doing, is a dishonest framing of their typical approach to new games.
No, it's not. You even stated, dude, that they change. How is he being dishonest by saying that they change?
And it still doesn't change the fact.
Yeah, I will admit they do shady things, like with 76 and all of that, and even the Nuka Dark fiasco. Yeah, they do shady things, but to be honest, you know, I know this is a bit of a side tangent, at least for myself, is that those are the only things that they fucking have done. They haven't done anything new as of late that I know of.
Many of the changes they made were not good ones. It's also worth mentioning,
again, subjective. I'm not going to keep pointing that out.
That changing the location isn't the same as changing the setting. In many ways, the Commonwealth feels like a repackaged Capital Wasteland.
No. Not even in the slightest. I think the Commonwealth is far from it. I don't think you were able... Yeah, you're not able to build settlements in Fallout 3. Don't know how you could see the similarities, but go on.
Not to mention that throwing out tone and atmosphere is entirely meaningless when they're both incredibly inconsistent in both games. Fallout 3...
To you, and a lot of the inconsistencies I think he's referring to is the lore. Most of the issues I've heard about the lore are just so nitpicky, like, come on. I will have to dedicate a separate video going over some of the lore issues with Fallout 4. But,
3 is a grim world where everyone is supposedly struggling to survive. But daily survival doesn't seem to be a concern for most characters. There only seems to be a few characters that actually care about the water crisis. Liam Neeson and the 3 water beggars. So it comes across as though it isn't that big of an issue, and no one in the
What?
world seems to give a shit about there being a dire lack of food. So that grim tone...
Yeah, and also there are hunters in Fallout 3. You know, I know it doesn't add to the megaton or the food thing, but, well, it does, because that's how they probably get their fucking food, is trading with those hunters you can meet in the game. I think there are 2 sets of hunters. Oh no, I already pointed this out. So, don't need to go any further.
Tone has already been nerfed super fucking hard, because the effort wasn't fully put in to make it as grim as they wanted, but to make things worse.
To your standards, bro.
Worse, the world is full of dumb, goofy characters.
Don't like that phrasing. I don't think that's worth helping me take you seriously, but okay.
That destroy the tone and atmosphere as well.
To you.
Such as Dr. Lesko, who is just a dumb cartoon character who sounds like a Professor Frink ripoff.
My experiments are of a complex nature and would take a scientist to explain.
Hey, that's you.
Oh wait, I'm a scientist.
I
How
didn't mind
marvelous.
this class.
Stupid machine. Oh, wait a minute. This isn't the monsterometer. It's the frog exaggerator. What?
Or the costumed morons in Superhuman Gambit. It makes it really hard to take the world seriously, when most of that world doesn't care about or acknowledge the supposedly dire circumstances they're in, and when it's full of dumb cartoons.
Yeah, because the food isn't explained to you. You know what's so funny? I've heard the opposite argument, like that New Vegas is in the clear because they explain it to you, but they want Bethesda to show them. And New Vegas never did that. It was all disposition. Pretty much. I mean, I love New Vegas. I love the dialogue options, but it was just pretty much disposition. And these guys are complaining that Bethesda needs to show them what people eat and how they get their food, which is completely fucking pointless. I mean, yeah, I could see, like, but I'm open-minded about this. I think it could have been game constraints at the time.
Characters. In New Vegas, there's a fairly consistent tone. A lot of people are tense and unsure of the future, due to the escalating tensions between the main factions in the eventual Battle of Hoover Dam. The outcome of this conflict would impact just about everyone in the Mojave. This tone is consistently conveyed by multiple characters across the entire game. Fallout 4, on the other hand...
Okay, this is what we're talking about. Fallout 4, not New Vegas. I don't care.
tries to tell a serious and tragic story, but the world is littered with absurdity, such as the Silver Shroud quest. Characters that function
Again,
as little more than
these
walking...
don't count as arguments that are substantial because it's just opinion. There's a lot of people that praise the fucking Silver Shroud quest. Are you kidding? There's people on YouTube that say the Silver Shroud, like, they had fun doing that quest, but
stereotypes
again, I don't want to point
and
out
dumb
every
gimmicky factions like the Minutemen.
But how do you square all those circles I was just mentioning?
Okay.
How do you make everybody happy when, rather like the Fallout Wasteland itself, different factions of fans are trying to pull the game in opposite directions?
Well, I mean, naturally you can't make everyone happy. That's simply the nature of humanity.
It clearly didn't make you happy either.
The goal instead should be to find a good middle ground. A game that is accessible to people, but one in which its RPG mechanics are a core part of the game. You know, kinda like New Vegas? That's the interesting thing here about New Vegas being a bit of a wild card in Bethesda's lineup. They had been increasingly simplifying their games to appeal to more people.
No, I just think you don't understand RPGs. I mean, because Bethesda, I think, opens their games a little too much. Like, I'm not saying they should completely linearize Fallout. I'm saying, because, you know, to be honest, New Vegas was semi-linear. Don't give me the fucking Deathclaw arguments in the Cazadors, or you could sneak past those. No, they're intentionally put there in development terms, I'm believing, just so that way you don't go that way, and those creatures are intimidating. You know, you're kind of forced, essentially, to go the safer route, which is, I believe, I don't remember the highway name, but I do know that you go along, follow some road or highway, and you're pretty much on your merry way. I don't know, I don't think they're dumbing their games down. I just think they open them up, you know, in a way that you can choose your build without making a decision or being in a specific camp. Like in Fallout 4, you could be a melee automatic or automatic weapons dude who's crazy with automatics and who can fucking bash your brains in. New Vegas, you could do the same thing.
Then New Vegas comes along and provides an accessible experience while tightening up its RPG aspects, rather than stripping them out or dumbing them down. It's proof that this format can...
They kind of did. It's all... Well, no, they didn't. They added more.
...or can be successful.
How do you make everybody happy when, rather like the Fallout
Not saying Fallout 4 had nothing.
Wasteland itself, different factions of fans are trying to pull the game in opposite directions? Well, strangely enough, it all begins with a pile of rubbish. The junk system is one of my favourite additions to Fallout 4. It's a brilliant system that adds so much to the game, but let's keep things simple just for now.
Okay, so now we're finally getting into the actual defense of Fallout 4.
I wouldn't be saying that, because you've taken your time talking about Fallout 3 and New Vegas as well. To me, it seemed like you even almost forgot this was about Fallout 4. Due to the fact that, and I know I criticized John for doing this, and yeah, he did do this. He brought in Fallout 3 for, I don't know why. But it was for the sake of argumentation, and to be honest, I give John a pass on that, because it makes sense. These guys do not understand game design. Neither do I. But I get an impression too that he thinks he knows what he's talking about, and he doesn't. This is all speculation.
And I just want to say that defending this game is already a bit of a controversial position to take, simply because of how thoroughly it's been picked apart and its flaws
God, yeah, you mean objectively thoroughly picked apart.
exposed. So I'd expect anyone coming out to defend Fallout 4 would do so by...
Why are you linking YouTubers as well? That was a unnecessary thing. Who cares? That's their opinion. I don't give a fuck what people on YouTube have to say about a game.
Starting off with their strongest arguments.
That I tend to enjoy.
Most impenetrable defense you can muster. Putting your best foot forward to convince people early on, so they'll stick around to watch the rest of the video.
Oh, and also Kretosis is saying I believe he's poisoning the well.
And it's really weird that he'd begin his defense with something completely unrelated to the issues people have with this game, as well as trying to make it sound as if this is the thing that'll bring the two opposing groups of fans together that he described earlier.
No.
If he really thinks the junk system in Fallout 4 is the best way to please both RPG and FPS fans, then things are already looking quite grim. It's very telling that he's starting his defense with a system people didn't really take issue with for the most part, instead of the substance of what most people's complaints were related to, the story.
Yeah, but this is the point of his video, is to point out all the good things in the game.
World building, questing, and characters.
In the original Fallout games, the world is populated in a very pragmatic fashion when it comes to items. Almost everything you see is just painted into the background. In fact, items you can interact with are sufficiently rare that you could hold down shift to highlight items that weren't just part of the scenery. From an isometric perspective, this is perfectly reasonable, as the camera is so far away from the player, distinguishing a useful item from generic junk would have been very difficult. This means in most scenarios, most levels are effectively empty, with items instead placed in containers or dropped by dead enemies. When Fallout moved into 3D first person, this changed. Now that the player was down on the ground and had a better view of the areas they were exploring, this level of emptiness would have made areas seem bland. So miscellaneous decorations were added all over the place. Spare parts, trash, components, pencils, various bits of pre-war detritus. Now this did work as set dressing, but it created a problem. 99% of it was useless. You might occasionally grab items with decent weight to value ratio to sell at the nearest store, but most of your character acted like potentially functional pre-war technology in a never before explored ruin was just a bit uninteresting.
So right away, John tries to frame the existence of junk items as a problem, when it's really...
They kind of were. I mean, you couldn't do much except for, of course, in New Vegas. Yes, you can use junk in New Vegas. I can't believe that was never mentioned. Like when people did give Fallout 4 a good review. But I'm not saying, you know, just because New Vegas had it, it's better. I personally think Fallout 4's junk system's better, since all junk components can be used for multiple things, which is what I believe this point is.
not. As far back as Morrowind...
Oh, Jesus Christ. Here we go. Another fucking idiotic comparison that I'm not going to pay attention to. This has nothing to do with Fallout 4!
The world was populated with all kinds of useless junk items.
Yeah, but what the fuck's the Elder Scrolls world's junk items have anything to do with fucking Fallouts?
With literally...
Again, same devs, different fucking objectives with these games. They're not trying to release the same exact clone.
No function to the player. Exactly as he describes for Fallout here, it was set dressing, and nothing more.
And you could take it.
He specifically cites this as being a problem, but he can't substantiate or back up why it's a problem.
He did. He did, you just didn't get it.
He claims that you bypass potentially important tech in ruins, but he fails to provide examples of this because there are none. Literally all the random junk items you find in ruins...
Why would he? Like you just said, it's all random junk. Why would he go into detail about random junk? Do you want him to do a complete analysis? Look like deep, even clip through the fucking map? Is that how deep you want him to look?
Are random objects such as scrap metal, pencils, teddy bears, empty bottles, chessboards, and so forth. Many games are filled with such set-dressing objects. The only difference is that you can interact with them here due to the specific style of how Bethesda's games work, which changes nothing about their purpose for existing in the world. So these items, simply existing alone and not having any use, isn't an issue. He's falsely presenting it as a...
It is, and especially if you can take and interact with it. But of course, again, New Vegas has the weapon thing, so you can, in the crafting stuff, so you can use junk in New Vegas, but I think junk in New Vegas is useful, to be honest.
problem in order to prop up Fallout 4's junk collection system, and the idea that you're passing by and ignoring valuable tech is something he invents whole cloth.
He doesn't invent that.
And then came Fallout 4. Now, basically every item in the game can be broken down into materials, and those materials can be used to improve weapons and armor, or build infrastructure in your bases. This is
and I also want to say, John did use the word in his Reddit reply, hyperbolic, but he didn't use it the way Kretosis claimed that he did. He did not say Kretosis was insane. He was basically saying he was upset that John had an opinion he just didn't like. And that's kind of the truth of the matter.
Huge improvement, and the core reason why is because we're playing a game here, an interactive experience, so the more benefit there is to engaging and interacting with the world, the better.
That's not necessarily the case.
Yep, this video's just set up and knocked down. Any positive point, you have to come in and dish it out with some negative bullshit. Like, there's no reasoning here. This is 46 minutes in. I have not seen this dude reason with John. Or, sorry, Miniature Nerd. God damn it. This is fucking stupid, dude.
More interaction with a world alone doesn't necessarily
It's again, set up and knock down.
make the game better in any way.
Yeah.
If adding this system just makes the game better by default due to more interaction, then you could argue every single game should have a system like this.
That's not what he's saying. Or you're kind of I believe this is a straw man. This has to be a straw man. He wasn't. This is not what he was talking about. His argument doesn't even open up to that possibility of that being what he meant.
Because it increases interaction with the world. What you're referring to here is a basic resource gathering system that exists in plenty of other games.
Yeah, but they all set out to do different things with that system. That's not all the fucking same.
Resource gathering is a prime aspect of other games, sure, but that
I must really not play very many games. If you really think that inventory systems are the same, come the fuck on.
aspect is largely a vehicle to progression in these games. I'm not sure there's many people who boot up Minecraft excited to spend hours mining hundreds of thousands of resources.
Oh, they do. You have not played Minecraft, I guess, because a lot of people love digging up resources. It's part of playing the game, and plus you can also explore and all that stuff. But why are you bringing up fucking Minecraft?
They can build a massive fuck-off castle.
Yeah, and
they're
the point
typically
is with
excited
this,
about the actual building.
I really do think this is a straw man.
Designing aspect, not the
He's just
resource
playing upon
gathering.
it.
Same goes for Terraria, Rust, 7 Days to Die, or the multitude of other games that use similar systems. The difference is, resource gathering is a core part of these games, whereas it has never been a part of Fallout's core gameplay, nor does it add roleplay.
Yeah, then you prove his point. That's kind of John's point. Yeah, junk was useless. I said it. Yeah.
Value in any way whatsoever. The systems that junk collecting supports in Fallout 4, the weapon and armor modification and the settlement building, are still just extras on top of an otherwise complete game. They're nice to have, but they're nowhere near what the core of the game should be.
And they're not. If you're one of these fucking stupid idiots that think that fucking, I know I insulted him, I called him an idiot, but the settlement system is not forced upon the player. I don't know what he means by... I gotta go back. I don't want to go too far back, but...
Interaction with the world. What you're referring to here is a basic resource gathering system that exists in plenty of other games. Resource gathering is a prime aspect of other games, sure, but that aspect is largely a vehicle to progression in these games. I'm not sure there's many people who boot up Minecraft excited to spend hours mining hundreds of thousands of resources so they can build a massive fuck-off castle. They're typically excited about the actual building and designing aspect, not the resource gathering. Same goes for Terraria, Rust, 7 Days to Die, or the multitude of other games that use similar systems. The difference is, resource gathering is a core part of these games, whereas it has never been a part of Fallout's core gameplay, nor does it add roleplay value in any way whatsoever.
Okay. I believe
the systems that junk collecting supports in Fallout 4, the weapon and armor modification and the settlement building, are still just extras on top of an otherwise complete game. They're nice to have, but they're nowhere near what the core of the game should be. If these systems were stripped out, the one single thing that would change about any major story elements would be the teleporter relay being
I was wrong. It's an opinion.
Built. If anything, I'd argue that when the junk collection system is...
Wait, did he actually say it forces you? No, we're 4752. Okay, well.
System is viewed as a core aspect of gameplay, all the time spent collecting with the world. What you're referring to here is a basic resource gathering system that exists in plenty of other games. Resource gathering is a prime aspect of other games, sure, but that aspect is largely a vehicle to progression in these games. I'm not sure there's many people who boot up Minecraft excited to spend hours mining hundreds of thousands of resources so they can build a massive fuck-off castle.
He doesn't know that.
They're typically excited about the actual building and designing aspect, not the resource gathering. Same goes for Terraria, Rust, 7 Days to Die, or the multitude of other games that use similar systems. The difference is, resource gathering is a core part of these games, whereas it has never been a part of Fallout's core gameplay, nor does it add roleplay value in any way whatsoever. The systems that junk collecting supports in Fallout...
You can roleplay as a power armor junkie who collects resources and specific to fucking create and fix up power armor. Or, better yet, you could roleplay as a fucking weapon maker who makes weapons and sells them. So, yeah, there's perks you can do that with.
Fallout 4, the weapon and armor modification and the settlement building, are still just extras on top of an otherwise complete game. They're nice to have, but they're nowhere near what the core of the game should be. If these systems were stripped out, the one single thing that would change about any major story elements would be the teleporter relay being built. If anything, I'd argue that when the junk collection system is viewed as a core aspect of gameplay, all the time spent collecting junk detracts from the focus of the story.
It's not the core focus of gameplay. It's an optional thing. I gotta go through this transcript. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that stupid was way whatsoever. The system 4758 sports and Fallout 4 weapon and armor. Okay. Not resources, other games. So yeah, okay. Wait, whatsoever. The settlement building are still just on top of otherwise complete game. They're nice to have, but nowhere near game should be. Yeah, but that's not the focus of the fucking story. You even kind of said this by saying it's not the core. Then why would it be the core of Fallout and Fallout 4?
Characters and world at large. Taking New Vegas as an example, the
What's up with bringing up New Vegas all the time?
crafting system in the game does not add to the writing at all.
No.
It has very little to do with dealing with NPCs, and picking up scrap metal, duct tape, and wrenches for my repair kits does not tie in with how well New Vegas handles conflict.
Okay, then what's the point with this? This doesn't refute anything at all.
This is the exact line of reasoning the lead writer used as an excuse for writing a shitty story,
Or an example.
along with a shallow world for Fallout 4. It's
Which
not
is
a good
questionable.
excuse, Because there are many people who do care about the story and world building.
Yeah,
But he is
just
right
like
for
the
the fact
building aspects in Fallout 4. Ooh,
that many people would
touche.
also disregard the story to build shit.
Let me give you a really simple example here. Let's look at a couple of very early game areas in various Fallout games. So, this is Silver's house in Fallout 3. The vast majority of these items have no use and effectively no value. They don't really tell us anything. I could steal them, but there's no point. A pre-war camera, useful chemicals, practical day-to-day kitchenware, all of them have no utility outside of a tiny number used in weapon schematics.
I will argue if you steal enough junk, you could probably make a good bit of caps. Depending on the value item and I believe your charisma. I disagree a little bit with John here. But this is the point he's getting at. He's not bringing up New Vegas, because clearly New Vegas has a crafting system, so...
New Vegas is very similar, though the issue is somewhat eased by a more full crafting system.
Again, none of this is an issue. You keep framing it as such.
Yeah, most of the things you brought up weren't issues either.
But it's really not. These items aren't meant to have value to the player. They're not meant to tell us anything besides the fact that people live in the world and collect whatever junk they like or find useful. If I see a plate and cutlery on a table, it tells me these characters use dishes to eat food, and that's about it. Yes, it's absolutely set dressing, and there's literally nothing wrong with that. I've never seen anyone complain about this in Morrowind or Oblivion or Fallout 3 or New Vegas or Skyrim. This is honest to God the first time I've ever heard anyone framing junk items existing as being a massive problem that needs to be solved, because most people...
I've heard a lot of people say that. He just must not be that well endowed in the community then. Which is a shame. Because this is actually wrong. People actually do complain about the junk. John, or Miniature Nerd, is not the only person I've heard complain about it. I've heard multiple people fucking bitch about it. So your point?
understand what set dressing is.
Just because you don't see people on the internet bitching about it doesn't mean that it's wrong. Just because people on the internet bitch about it doesn't mean it's right either. Doesn't mean that you should harbor the same opinion.
Literally, the only significant difference between these items and similar set dressing items that are painted into the world in other games is that you can pick them up. Giving these items to function as scrappable junk isn't inherently a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing either, it's just something you're now able to do that you couldn't before.
Yeah, then it's not, but you're trying to frame it as a bad thing.
If you couldn't interact with these items at all, if they were just static too, would they still be an issue? Or is their existence as items the sole reason this is a problem to you?
In Fallout 4, meanwhile, this is the Concord Speakeasy, and at first it looks very similar, even featuring the same camera. But now, these items are hugely more valuable, because they're a source of components, so you drag them back to base and drop them off there for crafting. And this has all sorts of positive impacts on the game world. Firstly, it incentivizes the player to engage with the world with much more attention. Rather than passing by background decoration, you start scavenging, which fits perfectly into a game universe where scavengers and prospectors have long been a part of the games, with the whole process streamlined through the quick loop menu, one of hundreds of tiny UI improvements that Fallout 4 gained.
Hundreds of small UI improvements? Surely you could substantiate that, right? Like, Sure, quick looting is nice, but what are all these other improvements? Anyways, picking up literal junk does sound a lot more interesting when you frame it as engaging with the world. But by making these items into loot, this just
everything you see is useful in Fallout 4. That's pretty world engaging, if you ask me.
gives them the same role as Stimpaks, Caps.
Again, this is all my opinion. Alright, and the same thing, but the thing with him is he's trying to frame his fucking opinion as fact, and it's just a setup and knock down. Any good point's going to be refuted with a negative one. We're almost an hour in. And that's all, there's no coming to a middle ground.
ammo,
Yeah,
and
he agrees with Miniature Nerd, but who cares? He's still going in to shitting on the game.
other things a player would keep an eye out for, like in the other games. This isn't nearly as significant of an improvement as he's trying to make it seem.
That's your opinion, man.
New Vegas set this precedent with crafting and reloading benches, and it never became a significant part of the gameplay.
No.
This isn't
Neither did fucking Fallout 4's. What do you mean it's significant? Like Fallout 4, it's a significant, like, oh, well, one quest has you build the transporter if you leave Preston in the Museum of Freedom. Oh, shock, or, controversy. They force you to do the settlement system. They don't, just because they have that happen in one fucking quest. One! Or I believe 2, including building, I believe, Liberty Prime. But 2? Really? 2? Come on. Like, and you can, even if, like I said, you leave Preston in the Museum of Freedom, you have no settlements until up to that point in the game. It's Fallout 4, I don't know if this is the point. I believe this is the point he's making.
Evolutionary
whatever.
new system or anything. It's
He's
something
saying that Fallout 4's junk system makes it part of the gameplay. In a sense, I could understand that, but I think the way he's framing it is that it forces you to interact with the world.
It's been done dozens of times before.
Yeah,
Stuff
but in different ways.
Stuff like junk collecting, weapon and armor modification, and the settlement building are ultimately bells and whistles, not the actual substance of what comprises a choice and narrative-driven RPG.
To you.
Even better, in a world where everything contains components that might have a use down the line, the optimal solution would be to pick up and take everything, but carry weight is the limiting factor. You have to start thinking with a critical mindset about what is most important to carry back to base.
Weighing my options between a desk fan and a roll of tape isn't thinking with a critical mindset.
Ooh. Really, so you just kind of collect things and wait until you're over-encumbered, you don't look at your carry weight. Okay. Yeah, he's right. You gotta think more, because that adds to carry weight. That's what he means. Keep an eye on the numbers that I don't think Kretosis can, because he just fucking seems to collect things.
Especially when I could just fast travel to the nearest settlement, dump my junk items in the workbench, and fast travel back for the junk I left behind. Again, this is literally nothing new for games with looting, and especially for Bethesda games, which have had carrying capacity dating back to the first Elder Scrolls games. Very few games have any kind of infinite inventory
I'll give him that.
or excessively generous inventory. Most games have a limited inventory of some kind, be it carry weight or item slots. To reference Minecraft, Terraria...
Oh, no, don't reference these games. Just stick to the topic. This isn't helping me think Fallout 4 is a bad game. These games have that, but they have it differently than what Fallout and Bethesda games do with their inventory system.
Rust, and 7 Days to Die Again. This is something you have to deal with in all of these
You
games.
should have in the first place.
You have to prioritize what resources and materials are most important to you, and which to leave behind. Again, he's clearly trying to make this sound as if it's more significant than it really is.
Because it is. You can build whatever you want with those fucking things.
Hell, having to decide which items you want to take or not has also been a long-running part of Bethesda games in general. Adding in junk on top of that just means you have more things to choose from.
And what's even better than that is, that changes over time, and depends on your own build choices.
Can you just say, adding in junk on top of that means you have more things to choose from. And what's even better than that is that changes over time and depend on your own build choices at the start of the game.
At the start of the game, duct tape will be as precious as gold dust, as you need adhesive for everything. But as time moves on, you might well find it's screws that become more pressing, leading to the discovery that finding a desk fan now generates a slightly concerning amount of joy. In the mid-game, copper and aluminium could well start running low. And finally, rare precious materials for advanced energy weapons. That camera might be no use to you at level 2, but become precious at level 35, leading to a world of dynamic scavenging, where an area that seems uninteresting at one point becomes a gold mine later.
Yep.
What is that concerning amount of joy?
Oh, dude.
What the
Again, just set up and knock down.
fuck? What?
Don't get the point in this meme, it's not funny.
What?
I'm literally skipping through this.
No, seriously though, this is literally nothing new.
The only example you show is a fucking desk fan? Of useless junk?
The crafting and building games have referenced to this point literally all feature a variety of resources that are used to craft different things, some of which tend to be rare, and your resource needs change as you aim to craft different things. This isn't complex in the slightest. Some materials are rare, and are often core components in crafting higher tier equipment or objects. But he has to puff this up and make it sound far more interesting and complex
No, because it is. I agreed with Miniature Nerd.
than it really is. Even
No.
making up absurd and hyperbolic phrases like dynamic scavenging to
Yeah, because it is. You can build those components in the junk in Fallout 4 can be broken down to build whatever the fuck you want. You don't have to do the settlement system, so just modify a weapon. Not only that, you can use some of that shit for chems.
describe the extremely basic function of needing different resources in order to craft different items. Like at this point he's starting to sound like a used car salesman, trying to convince me that a rust bucket is a Ferrari.
You sound like the aftermath of that.
If I'm playing Warcraft 3, and I need more lumber to build something and I have my peasants collect more lumber,
Why are you bringing this fucking up? These are achieving different things. Are you fucking kidding me? You brought in so many unnecessary comparisons. I'm just puggled. This is set out to do something different.
is that dynamic scavenging?
Could be.
If I'm playing Terraria, and I need some
God
demonite
damn
ore to
it.
craft the next tier of armor, so I focus on getting that, is that dynamic scavenging? If I'm playing New Vegas,
Depends.
and I begin collecting 12.7mm rounds instead of 9mm rounds, is that dynamic scavenging?
No, it means depending on the weapon, you probably are so dumb you got the wrong ammo and you were collecting it, I guess. Or you didn't pay attention to the guns or what the ammo that gun requires. What the hell does this have to do with anything?
How is that any different than what he's describing here?
I don't know, what you just described didn't make any sense either. If I'm playing New Vegas and I begin to collect 12.7mm rounds instead of 9mm rounds, really? Do you think that's a good refute to that argument? I don't think so. At all.
Resource needs change as your goals for gameplay or crafting change. We're only 11 minutes into this video.
Because the way he describes that is like I was collecting the wrong ammo. What the fuck?
And he's already literally
Yes, and especially if those items have a use.
its defense with flowery language and buzzwords to puff up otherwise basic features of this new system.
Oh my god.
And perhaps even more
It's just negative. What was that quote in the beginning of this shit? Aggressive negativity is your brand. I think that's spot on.
More importantly, it quietly encourages you to pay attention to the world. Because unlike previous Fallout games, where loot tended to be fairly generic and distributed at random, now you need to consider what's going to yield it. Need gold or silver? Try residential areas and look for jewelry. Need ceramic? Look for restaurants and kitchens. As you play more, you start to get a feel for what's going to be where, and thus whether, with your current needs, it's worth taking the time to loot.
This was a good point Miniature Nerd brought up. And yeah, he's right. It makes sense to find those items there. So, He's got a point here.
To nearby diner or science lab or electrical store, and suddenly it struck me. The game has taught me not just to act like a scavenger, but to think like one. The game mechanics have nudged me into role-playing as a Fallout prospector, and I think that's kind of genius.
And more importantly, it quietly encourages you to pay more attention to the world, because you need to consider what's going to yield loot. Mechanical parts, gas and engines from cars, crops from ruins of farms, concrete and cobblestone from construction sites, and suddenly it struck me. 7 Days to Die hasn't just taught me to act like a scavenger, but think like one too. The game mechanics have nudged me into role-playing as
But you do, Kretosis, you do know that this game set out to do something different, right? It's not trying to be Fallout. They can't do the same, what? He doesn't understand games. It just seems like it. It's like he just thinks, oh, well, just because these games have it, Bethesda's no different.
Survivor in a zombie apocalypse. What the
fair.
fuck is your argument here? That the act of...
What the fuck was your argument? You brought up H1Z1. Or not H1Z1, DayZ. And I ignored that. Because I don't know, there's no cobblestone in Fallout 4. Just
looking for materials to build stuff with is somehow the equivalent of role-playing?
Yeah, it fucking is. You can roleplay as a prospector, you fucking ninrod. Yeah, you can roleplay as a scavenger too. You don't even need, like, you don't even have to use it to build, you can sell it. Yeah, and you can roleplay as a gunsmith.
By this logic, just about every game
makes weapons to sell. I've always wanted to play that character, actually. I wanted to make a character who specifically made weapons as a source of income. Thanks to the mod, you know, Start Me Up and all. Not saying it's that, you know, mods, it's because of the mods of Fallout 4 is good. Fallout 4 is good all around.
out there is a role-playing game. Alien Isolation is a role-playing game about...
Nope, because these are different mechanics. You craft different things. You craft differently. Doesn't mean it's the same fucking thing.
Hiding from an alien. Team Fortress 2 is a role-playing game about mercenaries fighting over gravel.
The fuck does this have
Angry
to do?
Birds is a role-playing game about a race war with pigs.
What's this have to do with anything? These outside games you're bringing up do not help your argument. It just makes you look even more salty. Well, these other... Like, you're trying to find whatever fucking reason to shit all over this game. Yeah, and you're entitled to. You have a right to. But this doesn't... Like, this is a response video. Like, this doesn't help me think miniature nerds in the wrong here. At all.
Using basic game mechanics isn't
just makes it seem like you're trying to, again, dig whatever you can to prove air quotes here, because you think you know what you're saying, and I guarantee he does. And he has no fucking clue. He thinks, oh, well, these are all the same, it's crafting. But they set out to do that differently.
Role-playing is. Role-playing is typically creating a character.
Yeah, and you can fucking roleplay as a scavenger, dude, in Fallout. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy?
Finding who that character is and being immersed in that role.
Exactly. Depending on who that character is. Or yeah, prospector for some people. Or, better yet, even in New Vegas, you could roleplay as a prospector. Don't understand the argument here. Like, he's just trying to find things to destroy the video.
You can technically roleplay as a...
Which is not how you do responses, by the way. Like, a fair response is looking in at both sides, which is what me and Vincent Martin are doing. You know?
Scavenger in Fallout 4, if you so choose.
Yeah, same thing in New Vegas, if you so choose.
in the sense that you're Nate the Scavenger.
Nope. Stupid Nate Nora argument. It's not confirmed that you play as Nate. I think he's going off of that retarded argument. It's really stupid. It's not confirmed that you play as Nate. Well, the game says so when I don't play as him, but he gets killed off anyways. It was just a fill-in name for when you don't play as Nate. Quotes here. Because again, yeah, you know what? There was cut content where you can read the terminals of the Soul Survivors, but that was removed. It's out of the game. It was not put in. Because Bethesda realized that was kind of dumb, to be honest, because it gave the characters more backstory. You don't play as Nate. That's an objective fact. Like, it's not confirmed that you play as Nate. Like, that's your name.
Remember, you can't actually write your own backstory or
Yeah, you can.
personality for your character.
Yeah, you can. You can be a sarcastic nice guy. You could be a sarcastic jerk. You could be a sarcastic curious person. Hell, you can mix it. Be a bit of a jerk and a nice guy depending on the situation. Depends. I don't get this argument. Like, I don't think he explains how you're not able to roleplay.
But simply using a tacked-on game
He doesn't. He just says so. This is a video trying to prove to me why Fallout 4 isn't better than you think, and then you just say you can't roleplay, you can't write your own backstory, but you don't provide examples. Oh, that's right, because those examples are weak.
mechanic in the
And they'd
exact
be countered easily.
way it's intended to be used, the way it's implemented in every other fucking game that has it, is not role-playing on its own. You're still hyping up this entire system to appear as though it's more important than it actually is.
Because it is. The items you carry have fucking meaning.
Even if we considered engaging in certain mechanics as role-playing, it's still far from impressive. New Vegas allowed you to apply a massive variety of character aspects to direct role-playing systems, such as skill checks and dialogue. For example, the medicine skill not only had the impact of granting healing bonuses, but it let you roleplay as a doctor by creating drugs, applying your skills in dialogue by recognizing drug symptoms, diagnosing mental health problems,
Yeah, that's cool.
and offer your services to other people. Outside of dialogue, there are options such as performing surgery during the quest Et Tumor Brute, and examining the corpses during GI Blues. This isn't exclusive to medicine, it makes almost every skill have role-playing applications. However, because Fallout 4 has dumbed down the dialogue system and completely
Yeah,
removed
I agree.
skills, charisma is now the only stat
But yeah,
with any dialogue significance.
which it should be. Your knowledge and things shouldn't really be the thing that persuades people. That's my opinion. Like, if some guy came up to me claiming he's like some expert surgeon and wanted $1,000 from me offhand right then and there, I wouldn't fucking buy that. Even if, he was a doctor, let's say. Like, you can't take people at their word. People lie,
And special checks as a whole are extremely
sadly. But it's part
rare.
of life.
Of course, all of this would be meaningless if the junk didn't do anything. So fortunately, the opposite is true. Junk isn't just important, it's part of the core of the game.
Sure, junk is the core aspect of the game, but it
I
shouldn't
don't
be.
think so. I disagree with Miniature Nerd there. Because you can play through the game without collecting shit until you get to that point. But you only need certain resources for that particular part in the game.
We're talking about a choice-driven RPG series, where story and characters have been a
It's not been established. As I stated, I think Fallout 4 is very inconsistent in that regard.
core aspect for most of the mainline games, and all of that has been dumpstered in favor of collecting literal garbage. Collecting
No, there's still choices in Fallout 4, man.
materials to build stuff with. Something I can do in 100 other games.
Do it differently.
Minecraft, Terraria, 7 Days to Die,
Why are you
Rust,
bringing these
Ark,
up
No Man's
again?
Sky, Starbound, though that game is complete fucking shit. Seriously, don't buy it. The Forest, Conan Exiles, Subnautica,
Wow, projection. Nice.
RimWorld, and
What
countless
the fuck do these have anything? Well, how does this help your argument? These games introduce these, but yes, yes, they have crafting and loot and all this stuff, but they do it differently than how Bethesda went about the junk in Fallout 4.
others. This is still just extra stuff on top of an otherwise complete game. Bells and whistles, fluff. It's a decent, if flawed, system, and I'm sure many people enjoy what it brings to the table, but it has next to no impact on the main story, besides being required for a single quest. It has
What's the big deal?
no impact on the side quests, and can
It does.
otherwise be totally ignored. If you were to
Yeah.
strip this entire system out of the game, very little would change in the overall progression or primary goal of the game. Regardless, you'd say all of this would be meaningless if junk didn't do anything. Except you're neglecting to mention that how many materials I can rake in from a location doesn't need to be my sole motivation. Why not just put actual narrative-driven quests or interesting NPCs in these locations if there's no motivation to visit random areas?
Depends on, again, it's a him thing. It's all opinionated.
Specifically the, by this point, well-acknowledged core gameplay loop of explore, loot, craft.
I thought it was kill, loot, return. This is the core gameplay loop regardless, because the game
Really? You're gonna think Fallout 4 is a looter shooter? Even though there are quests that can be resolved without violence? Huh. Depends on, I guess, the quests you be doing. You must like doing the same ones over and over again. And then gets mad when you realize, oh, I'm just going here and shooting. Well, yeah. Even New Vegas has that. Are you kidding? New Vegas has, like, either go here, either resolve it through dialogue, or shoot 'em up. Yeah, very, very, very very, very deep in the RPG mechanics. And yes, not all the time. And yes, New Vegas does have more than Fallout 4 when it comes to that. But to say Fallout 4 is a looter shooter that has no NPCs you can talk down is a bit of a stretch.
game encourages looting non-junk items as well. Are you arguing that
Forgetting Paul Pembroke, you know, the Diamond City Blues quest, you can actually do that without, well, you have to kill Nelson, but you don't have, like, you can even persuade Henry to shoot Cook. You can tell the doctor to kill himself. Or resolve it peacefully. What?
that this gameplay loop is beneficial?
And also the end of the Unlikely Valentine where you meet Skinny Malone. You can tell Darla to leave or to kill Skinny Malone. Huh. Looter shooter, huh?
One of the big criticisms of Fallout 4 is the massive lack of quality content outside of this loop, because Explore, Loot, Craft, and Kill, Loot, Return has, by no means of exaggeration, nothing to do with role-playing.
In practical terms,
And if you play as a character who does this,
you begin the game with almost nothing.
you gotta understand the game before I would say you start role-playing.
I mean, like almost every other game.
You loot Sanctuary Hills. You use what you find to slightly improve your gun. That facilitates going to a further away and more dangerous location, looting that, and so on, exploring further and further with better and better weapons and armor.
So this might come as a bit of a shocking revelation, but you don't need to upgrade your gun to go to Concord. This actually has very little impact on the game overall, so upgrading
You also don't have to go to Concord.
your gun here doesn't facilitate anything.
I can't see how anyone would take this seriously. Like, you ask why Madden, would say the poisoning of the well words to you, why, like, why he would phrase things that way to get the other side, this is the same thing. You've said so many dumb shit, or so much dumb shit in this fucking video alone, that I just think, honestly, this is just geek banter. Pretty much. I don't think that works because I think that it works because of this. This is what this is. And again, it's a setup and knockdown. Any point that's good that John brings up, you have to bring in a negative one. No, well, I agree with that. But this and that, the other thing.
Because it was already well within your ability. Weapon and armor modification is nice, but it's not a game changer here. Nor is it as essential as he's portraying it to be. You can quite easily complete the game without engaging in weapon or armor modification at all. Not to mention, you're going to be finding better weapons and armor as you play through the game regardless. That's how this...
Depends. Sometimes I play as characters, depending though, who wear specific sets. And I only have them wear that. Yeah, a little more challenging. Yeah, it will take me longer to beat the game, but you know what? It's damn fucking fun, and I consider that to help out with role-playing in Fallout 4. Same thing in New Vegas.
This
And
typically
3.
works. Hell, as far back as Morrowind at least, exploring, looting, and finding better equipment has been a regular part of
it's an
Bethesda's
older
games.
game, bro.
You know, except for the fact that in Fallout 4 they give you a free set of power armor and a minigun in the first 10 minutes of the game.
For you little pussies who played on easy. Or very easy. Like, the argument with that is that they give you the power armor early, which is in such shit condition to begin with, that it's like, why trudge around in it for that long? You get one fucking fusion core, and the minigun isn't worth a fuck. It is if you improve it. And you don't need to use... By the way, if you have a strength of 10, you will not need the power armor to rip the minigun off. That's all you need. The power armor's just there. You can leave it up there and try to kill the Deathclaw without using power armor. Crazy, I know.
Upgrading your equipment might give you a bit of an edge, and again, it's a nice system to have, and I even have some praises for it coming in the next part of my Fallout 4 analysis, but it's not as revolutionary or necessary as you're trying to make it out to be. I realize I'm saying
Set up a knockdown. You're trying to make it out
that a lot?
revolutionary. Yeah, because it fucking was. A lot of people actually had the same opinion as Madden. Again, I don't think he's well endowed in the community.
But John is spending a great deal of time trying to make a basic system that's tacked onto this game that's been done countless times before.
And you've been arguing subjectively for the past 10, 20, 30 minutes how subjectively bad this crafting system is. And you brought in some pretty idiotic comparisons from outside source games that have the same mechanic as I stated earlier, but they tend to do a little different things with it than what Bethesda's doing here. And I do need to see how long I've been recording for. For about an hour. Alright, we'll keep going. I'll try not to make it near as 2 hours, but if it is, so be it.
4 sound like it's the best thing since sliced fucking bread.
Now, we'll get back to this exact loop and how it works in Fallout 4 in a second, but I do want to step back and look at the wider picture here. In particular, how Fallout 4 is for the most part unique in the Fallout franchise for even having an identifiable core gameplay loop at all. You see, in any big open game, you're going to have two different tiers of goal at the same time. First, you have a long-term goal. Find the water chip, find Dad, find Benny, find Sean. But these goals are often vague and far off, so generally the game is going to give you smaller, more local, more achievable goals. In Fallout, this is often done through subquests. Stop the Rad Scorpions, Power of the Atom, Ghost Town Gunfight, stuff like that. Local missions that can be resolved in a fairly short period of time. Now this worked fine in Fallout 1 and 2 as every location in the game features quests, and the space between them is represented by a map screen, The system, however, started to run into a bit of difficulty in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, as now the space between major towns wasn't just an abstraction, it was a real space you were travelling through, which thus had to be populated with stuff. This led to many small locations, camps, houses, abandoned farms, which the game flags to you and you can explore, but there's a risk that you could walk away from them empty-handed. And that's a bit of a disaster design-wise, as that teaches the player to not bother exploring in future. Exploration should always yield something.
I think the fact that Fallout 4's core gameplay loop has been identified to be something so simplistic is a testament to how far this franchise has fallen.
Oh my god. One of these types. Fallout isn't Fallout, huh? Wow. Okay, whatever, man.
Especially considering roleplay in a fucking RPG is not part...
You can roleplay. I just don't think you're good at it. In my opinion. Because you can roleplay in Fallout 4. Well, you said you used Start Me Up. No, I've roleplayed even without Start Me Up. The fuck are you talking about?
Part of the core gameplay loop.
Alright, what was loading?
Other
Hopefully
games
nothing
have
was
core
closing.
gameplay loops that are handled very well, such as Terraria, where engaging in the loop, dig,
damn.
fight, and explore is core to progression. Terraria isn't praised for the looping.
It's why are you bringing up Terraria? The Minecraft clone. It's a literal Minecraft clone. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Terraria is a Minecraft clone, except for done in 2D. It's Minecraft in 2D.
Existing, but for being done well. John cites Explore, Loot, Craft as being a core of Fallout 4's gameplay, but again, crafting can be entirely ignored and isn't necessary for progression.
Which is a good thing. It means it's your choice. They don't force you to do it.
Again, it's a nice bonus, but it doesn't make the game. This is almost the equivalent of praising a cake for having a cherry on top. It's not the substance of what the cake is, but a nice little bonus. At its core, Fallout is still about its story, world, and characters. Fallout 4 just handles all of these extremely poorly. As for location,
Hopefully he goes into detail why he says this.
that don't have anything of value in them. Again, this is something that happened quite often in Bethesda games. Your proposed solution of tape and desk fans having value makes them no different than stimpaks or ammo in this regard. If a location is lacking loot, throw some ammo in there. If a location is lacking loot, throw some tape in there. This is also just the
Yeah,
same...
but it's better than in New Vegas where you would go into fucking like Gene skydiving where you find your first bottle cap. Where that pretty much is it. Besides some of the loot in the locker, and that's it. Even the little place right next to, I think it's called the Mojave Outpost with the fucking statue. That place was empty. And after, you leave Nipton, the first gas station you see, that was empty. There was really nothing besides small shit I didn't care about. I would love... I am willing to show you guys what I'm talking about.
argument
But right now is not the time.
repackaged that junk items have no use.
And thus we come to Fallout 4. The junk economy is a very elegant answer to this problem.
Junk economy? Junk economy? Mate, it's a fucking basic-ass system that exists in countless other games.
That you've brought up and you keep bringing up. You're not arguing against it. You just say, well, it exists in other games, but you fail to realize that those other games set out to do different things with that system.
This is another perfect example of him making up phrases in order to make something sound
God.
more complex and
This
better.
is an example of you trying to set up and knock down. Again, like, there were multiple examples of this. Any good point he brings up, it seems like, you have to refute it with a negative fucking retort.
Than it really is. Imagine being so desperate to defend a game that you describe the basic function of collecting resources as dynamic scavenging, and a junk economy being an elegant solution to a few areas
It's kind of funny how he criticized John for talking, or Miniature Nerd for talking about the fucking loot thing, and he's still talking about it. He brought up all the same games he's brought up before, the same argument. Well, other games have done it, but they do it differently.
The game being a bit uninteresting.
I think that's
How do you make every single building in the game worth exploring? By giving every single bit of set dressing potential value.
The answer is, you don't need to, because this problem is far less disastrous than you make it out to be. Fallout 3 and 4 have an overwhelming amount of dungeons. There's probably a comparatively small amount of the player base that has seen every single dungeon in these games. Even if you give random junk items use and value, you're still going to eventually hit that threshold of not giving a shit anymore because you have everything you need. Especially considering the fact that by mid-game,
Yeah, but in New Vegas, you can do the same thing.
you can just buy a lot of components that you need in bulk. This
Like, I don't value the junk in New Vegas at all. Like, it's not even explained to you. It doesn't even tell you what it breaks down and what it could be used for. Just, you have to go to the workbench of your desire and see what those items require.
system doesn't so much increase the amount of dungeons you're going to be exploring, so much as it will increase the amount of items you bring back from each one. Also, just a point worth mentioning, but dungeoneering is never what Fallout has been about. Dungeons
Why
were
does New Vegas have them? You argued that New Vegas has them.
set pieces for quests and part of the narrative, but they weren't the entire point of the game. Filling up the empty space
they have dungeon sequences. It's an RPG. It wouldn't be an RPG without them.
in a world with potentially interesting locations to explore is a good thing because it fills up the world, but it's still just set dressing, in the same fashion that random junk items are. These items were never the core of previous Fallout or modern Bethesda titles, in the same way random dungeons aren't a part of Fallout's core gameplay.
If anything, the loot might have been a bit
know.
too compelling.
I mean, Fallout 1 and 2 did throw you in a dungeon. The very beginning, I played those two. Only the tutorial part. Yeah, that's a dungeon, bro. May not be complex or anything, but yeah, it's a dungeon. They throw you in a tutorial dungeon.
Remember just after Fallout 4 launched, there was a whole bunch of webcomics that made the joke players were too busy crafting to bother finding Sean. That's a symptom of a core gameplay loop so strong that it's hard to break away from it to focus on the wider macro goal, though don't worry, we'll get back to the issues of your mission to find Sean later.
If this gameplay loop is so strong that it breaks the primary goal of the game, isn't that a bad thing? Typically a side feature
No, it's not. Because doesn't New Vegas do the same thing, but with side quests?
shouldn't overshadow
Like, most of the choices people talk about that are on New Vegas, they fail to. They don't realize that a lot of New Vegas's main quest all revolve around side quests.
the more important aspects of a game to this degree. We're about 15 minutes into the video, and he's barely said anything of substance.
Same with you. You brought up shitty examples, and again, as I said, you fucking don't understand that those crafting games set out to do different things.
See, this is the thing I really can't
And
stand
you're
it
harping on this junk shit for far too long.
with these in defense of type videos, which is absolutely what this video is.
Yeah, that's exactly what the fuck this video is. It's a defense video for Fallout 4. Who cares?
Discussion of the objective quality of the games falls by the wayside in favor of trying to score points in defense of the game.
Yeah.
That's not to say that he's
Says the person who literally fucking sets up and knocks down this entire video, and who also said he won't react to the second video because he actually criticizes the game. Fuck you. You fucking waste of talent.
intentionally trying to deceive people. I don't know what his intentions are, but it seems pretty clear that some mental gymnastics are going on here.
Same with you, dude. Like, this entire argument you started is fucking subjective, you goddamn retard.
In order to justify the idea that this game is better than people think.
Because it fucking is, because your one narrow tunnel vision mind can't seem to fucking agree with that. And just simply just leave a comment. Both of these videos, the Fallout 3 isn't better and this one, both should have been comments. This is just sad.
Thing is, many bad games can have small positives you can pick
It's
out
not a bad game.
of them.
This is what John is, or many a true nerd is fucking talking about. This is what he referenced in his post.
But that doesn't change the fact that those games are still bad.
Yeah.
The fact that he has to do so much
To
work
you.
here in order to make these systems seem great.
And if he doesn't like him, Kratos, you're entitled to your opinion. But this is too much. Way too much. You've brought in dumb things just to argue for whatever reason. It doesn't help your case.
Should be representative of just how little he actually has to work with. A rather simple system about looting crafting materials and spreading those materials around the world in a logical way can't be described as such because it doesn't sound interesting. It has to be described with terms like dynamic scavenging
Oh my god.
or junk economy
How does that
to
make
make
him bad?
it sound better than it is.
How is that bad?
Looting junk can't simply be described as looting junk because that sounds unappealing. In many ways it functions basically as a chore, largely because it is. The material gathering stage of any game is often the least appealing or most tedious aspect because it's rarely ever designed to be a hyper-engaging aspect of the game. In the case of Fallout 4, collecting garbage is literally just picking up junk as you come across it. John's description of this system is basically the equivalent of a garbage collector.
Alright, let's read this. More meaningless job titles. One poll, researchers spent 4 months looking for occupations with strange titles advertised on the internet, although most of the high function or hold on. Highfalutin job descriptors were nominated by the people. Okay, let's see this list. You can read this. Some examples include education tree, nourishment, school lunch server, gas jockey, shop assistant, dishwasher, laborer, housewife, waiter. Does this have to do with anything?
Describing their job as a sanitation specialist.
This, by the way, was one of Fallout
I don't know
76's
if that
critical
is shit. I'm not even
mistakes,
gonna react
by
to that.
reintroducing weapon and armor condition into the game and making junk the currency used to maintain them. In 76, it's entirely feasible that you could go looting, but if the haul is a bit low, you could end up weaker than when you began in junk terms. In Fallout 4, as condition isn't an issue, that can't happen. Every single item you pick up brings you closer to improving your arsenal, and every improvement you make will be with you forever.
Again, an over-exaggeration of how deep the system goes. This really shouldn't need to be said, but not every single item you pick up will necessarily help towards your goals. It's entirely possible to collect a shit ton of basic materials that don't actually progress towards improving your equipment in any way. Yes, every material is usable for something, but not every material will hold the value he's pushing that it does due to your individual goals. You even gave an example of this, thanks to dynamic scavenging. Items such as screws will become far less valuable than adhesive.
He didn't even explain why that's bad. Why that makes Matin bad. He just kind of says it. Like, I was expecting an explanation to how that makes him bad. He just has an issue with him saying it.
But again, all of this is meaningless if the final
Which goes to show you how petty this entire video is.
stage of the loot, crafting, doesn't hold up. And I'd argue that the modular weapon crafting system of Fallout 4 is a huge step forward for the franchise, building on some of the best ideas in New Vegas.
I'm feeling like a broken record at this point.
Yeah, because you don't have any good arguments to bring up, because you keep bringing in outside sources thinking that's going to help people on the opposite side believe you.
But yet again, he's overhyping this system.
No, he's not. You're setting this up to knock it down. A lot of people liked it. I'm not getting mad, okay? I don't want people thinking I'm getting upset for those that do see this. It's just annoying. Like, very, very annoying.
The weapon modification system isn't too bad, but it does have some issues.
Yeah.
I like the concept, just not the implementation. Many weapons share identical upgrades, and it goes a long way to making a lot of weapons feel very
I do
similar
agree
to
with
each
that.
other.
Yeah, I agree.
Just for an example, you
I
could
do
take
think
the
Fallout 4 lacks weapons severely. I think they should have added a lot more.
assault rifle
So I'll
and a
give him
combat
that.
rifle, and modify them into very similar weapons with marginal differences several times over. This is true for many weapons in the game. There's a mod for the plasma gun to make it function similar to a flamethrower, so if you have one, why would you ever pick up the other? It's just a very similar thing to the thing you already have. Also, weapon modification was definitely not what people considered among New Vegas' best ideas. New Vegas is held in high regard because of its well-made factions, interesting NPCs, well-designed quests, expanding skill applications,
we know
well-written
this.
dialogue,
We know
and
this.
more. You know, role-playing stuff. In fact, it's quite an amusing thing to point out that Tim Kaine, the creator of Fallout, is quoted as saying, "My idea is to explore more of the world, more of the ethics of a post-nuclear world, not to make a better plasma gun." And yet here's
Yeah, that's exactly Fallout 4 and 3.
John, using a
As
weapon
well.
modification system to defend a game that is utterly lacking any kind of deep
But that's not what Tim Kaine said, and Fallout 4 does have that. It has exploration, exploring a post-apocalyptic world. What's, like you said about the crafting, this has nothing to do with what Tim Kaine said. As long as the core component, which is exploring, is what he said, is in the game, then it shouldn't be argued. This shouldn't be a point.
exploration
Because this is just, as you said, side activities.
ethics or groups in the post-nuclear world.
You see, for a long time, Fallout had a problem with linear
And Fallout 4 does that. You just don't like it.
weapon progression. Basically, this means that certain weapons are simply objectively superior to others, meaning you have no reason not to trade up from one to the next as they become available. The problem this creates is it makes playthroughs very similar. You know that certain weaker guns will be traded out as early as possible. And at the other extreme, you know that the moment you get your hands on certain weapons, there will never be any reason to stop using them. From the Turbo Plasma Rifle in Fallout 1, to the Pulse Rifle in Fallout 2, or Vengeance and Lincoln's Repeater in Fallout 3, these are objectively superior weapons to anything else you're going to find. It was New Vegas that started the process of fixing this problem, through adding a limited array of mods that could be fixed to particular weapons. While this
Okay, so he's cutting this down. Why? There's a problem with this video.
didn't stop weapons eventually falling out of
I don't
use,
know why.
it did mean that you could choose to invest in
Seems like, I don't know if this is this in John's video? Or Miniature Nerds? Keep calling him John. Said I'd try to call him Miniature Nerd, because fucking Kretosis over here keeps calling him John. Alright, we got the transcript, we got everything, so let's see.
power, as in Fallout 1 and 2, their strength now is in flexibility, allowing them to be introduced into the game much earlier. And you know what, I'm just going to mention this here, I love a powerful edge that would extend its lifetime, and let you keep using a weapon of
Okay,
your
no,
choice.
this is in
A common example
Kretosis' video. Yeah, this is in his video. Why are you cutting this down?
in a particular weapon
How much
and
has he
give it a
cut down?
powerful edge that would extend its lifetime, and let you keep using a weapon of your choice. In a way, Fallout 4's modular weapon crafting system is just a logical, if very significant, extension of this. Now, every gun can be modded extensively. Your 10mm pistol isn't doomed to redundancy.
So I'm gonna have to watch his video, because I'm getting a vibe. I know he hasn't said anything yet, but I'm getting a vibe he's gonna try to twist his words.
within the first 10 minutes of the game. Instead, if you want, rush to Gun Nut 1, slap a powerful receiver on it, you've got yourself a good early to mid-game weapon. And once you get into energy weapons, you can pretty much do anything. Turn a pistol into a shotgun, add fire damage, the world is your oyster. It was a really fun way to imagine energy weapons though. Rather than just being superior in power, as in Fallout 1 and 2, their strength now is in flexibility, allowing them to be introduced into the game much earlier. And you know what, I'm just going to mention this here, I love what Fallout 4 did with energy weapons. Rather than being a distinct class, as in every previous Fallout game, leading to that slightly awkward mid-game moment, when you realise all the best weapons from now on are going to be energy weapons, which you haven't been investing in, because you haven't really seen any energy weapons so far, so now you have to spend a few boring levels just piling points into energy weapons to make them usable.
So he makes it sound like you absolutely need to invest in energy weapons, But again, this is totally untrue. They're clearly more.
No, he doesn't. That's not his framing. Now you are framing that this is what he said. This is not what he said. He said he liked what they did with energy weapons. What?
More powerful, but it's totally valid to completely ignore them if you so choose.
The problem is what?
He also tries to make it sound like investing in energy weapons becomes his tedious task when it's really not. If you want to make a mid-game switch, just play the game normally and invest towards it. I did on my first ever playthrough of Fallout 1, though to big guns instead of energy weapons.
Who cares?
I proceeded through the game with little issue.
Who gives a fuck? I don't care how your experience of Fallout 1 is. Good, you like that shit.
Additionally, the fact that energy weapons are a mid-game item is a trade-off for speccing into stronger, more efficient weapons. John presents energy weapons as some sort of necessity for having access to the strongest weapons in the game, but
He does not. We're gonna go over his actual video and see what he said.
Example of this is the plasma pistol, which you can buy in Good Springs together with its high energy ionizer mod. It's expensive, but if that's where you want to dedicate your cash, it'll be a powerful friend into the mid-game. In a way, Fallout 4's modular weapon crafting system is just a logical,
I think he cut that too.
if very significant, extension of this. Now, every gun can be modded extensively. Your 10mm pistol isn't doomed to redundancy within the first 10 minutes of the game. Instead, if you want, rush to gun nut 1, slap a powerful receiver on it, you've got yourself a good early to mid-game weapon. The bigger deal, however, is that now you can make weapons work how you want them to work, not just to improve them, but to customize them. Make your pistols automatic, focus on getting the weight down to make them more effective in VATS, specialize in critical hits on
Did he cut all of that out? I don't recall seeing any of that said in this segment. You need to play the entire segment, brother. Yeah, I think he cut it. Alright, so we're at an hour 15. I'm going to bring up Notepad, just note this down. Notepad. 1:15:48. Okay. So we're going to go back to where John was making the weapon crafting.
One time Fallout had a problem with linear weapon progression. Basically, this means that certain weapons are simply objectively superior to others, meaning you have no reason not to trade up from one to the next as they become available. The problem this creates is it makes playthroughs very similar. You know that certain weaker guns will be traded out as early as possible. And at the other extreme, you know that the moment you get your hands on certain weapons, there will never be any reason to stop using them. From the Turbo Plasma Rifle in Fallout 1, to the Pulse Rifle in Fallout 2, or Vengeance and Lincoln's Repeater in Fallout 3, these are objectively superior weapons to anything else you're going to find. It was New Vegas that started the process of fixing this problem, through adding a limited array of mods that could be fixed to particular weapons. While this didn't stop weapons eventually falling out of use...
I think this was just cut entirely and then put in a way, because this is not... What about this segment? This is literally the same segment.
It did mean that you could choose to invest in a particular weapon and give it a powerful edge that would extend its lifetime, and let you keep using a weapon of your choice. In a way, Fallout 4's modular weapon crafting system is just...
Yeah, he's cutting it. How funny. You are a snaky piece of shit, dude. He left out where John said you can buy a plasma pistol. Huh. Interesting. I'm gonna note that, that's for sure. Note to self, right here in this fucking video.
Just a logical, if very significant, extension of this. Now...
well, more of this MP4 file. This is not a full product, okay? Or a full release. This is just me proving I'm going over this video, and I think it's fun.
Every gun can be modded extensively. Your 10mm pistol isn't doomed to redundancy within the first 10 minutes of the game. Instead,
Okay. Yeah, he's cutting out things, and it seems to be in a very disingenuous manner, too.
If you want, rush to gun nut 1, slap a powerful receiver on it, you've got yourself a good early to mid-game weapon.
Yeah.
And once you get into energy weapons, you can pretty much do anything. Turn a pistol into a shotgun, add fire.
Yeah, he cut this. He cut this. What are you talking about? Cretosis? I'm trying to watch this video seriously, and this is a waste of fucking time. He's cutting it to make it seem like this is what he's saying. Cutting this section down for time. It's an hour video. Your video's 4 hours long. And you had to cut this section down for time in a very deceptive manner. Holy shit. He's trying to make him seem like this is what he's saying.
Fire damage, the world is your oyster. It was a really fun way to imagine energy weapons, though. Rather than just being superior in power, as in Fallout 1 and 2, their strength now is in flexibility, allowing them to be introduced into the game much earlier. And you know what? I'm just going to mention this here. I love what Fallout 4 did with energy weapons. Rather than being a distinct class, as in every previous Fallout game, leading to that slightly awkward mid-game moment when you realise all the best weapons from now on are going to be energy weapons, which you have...
Yep, he's cutting it to be deceitful. Good job, dude. I don't even know if I want to react to this anymore. Yeah, that little transition, dude... Very obvious. That's why I went back and rewatched Matten's video, or that part of that video. Because I had a slight feeling, and I was right, that this is cut for deceptive reasons. Just to frame John saying this. This is shitty. This is shitty. You're gonna go down your channel, like, when your channel goes down, people won't really care. Because when they see this and they go back and look at what you cut out, like, why cut this part out? Oh, wait, that's right, because you're trying to be deceptive. It'll ruin your narrative. That's right.
Haven't been investing in, because you haven't really seen any energy weapons so far, so now you have to spend a few boring levels just piling points into energy weapons to make them usable.
So he makes it sound like you absolutely need to invest in energy weapons.
Nope, that's because you're either idiotic editing or your deceptive editing made you believe that. Or makes you think that. It's not what he said, so we're gonna go back. We're gonna rewatch this point. We're gonna go here, actually.
Relatively superior to others, meaning you have no reason not to trade up from one to the next as they become available. The problem this creates is it makes playthroughs
and many of you true nerds should put timestamps too.
Very similar. You know that certain weaker guns will be traded out as early as possible. And at the other extreme, you know that the moment you get your hands on certain weapons, there will never be any reason to stop using them. From the Turbo Plasma Rifle in Fallout 1, to the Pulse Rifle in Fallout 2, or Vengeance and Lincoln's Repeater in Fallout 3, these are objectively superior weapons to anything else you're going to find. It was New Vegas that started the process of fixing this problem, through adding a limited array of mods that could be fixed to particular weapons.
Yeah, he
While
cut
this
out
didn't
some
stop weapons eventually
significant points, which makes me not want to take his video seriously at all.
out of use, it did mean that you could choose to invest in a particular weapon and give it a powerful edge that would extend its lifetime, and let you keep using a weapon of your choice. A common example of this is the plasma pistol, which you can buy in Good Springs together with its high energy ionizer mod. It's expensive, but if that's where you want to dedicate your cash, it'll be a powerful friend into the mid-game. In a way, Fallout 4's modular weapon crafting system is just a logical, if very significant, extension of this.
Because it's a New Vegas. You're a New Vegas fucker, dude. You're a New Vegas fan. Holy shit. You just didn't want people to know that. It really doesn't help your case. You deceptively cut his video.
Now, every gun can be modded extensively. Your 10mm pistol is doomed to redundancy within the first 10 minutes of the game.
We're rewatching this because I want to see if that transition to Fallout 1 happens here.
If you want, rush to gun nut 1, slap a powerful receiver on it, you've got yourself a good early to mid-game weapon. The bigger deal, however, is that now you can make weapons work how you want them to work, not just to improve them, but to customize them. Make your pistols automatic, focus on getting the weight down to make them more effective in VATS, specialize in critical hits or maximize range and put a scope on it. And once you get into energy weapons, you can pretty much do anything. Turn a pistol into a shotgun, add fire damage, the world is your oyster. Assuming, of course, you can find enough advanced components to make the changes you want.
Why did you cut that?
It was a really fun way to imagine energy weapons, though. Rather than just being superior in power, as in Fallout 1 and 2, their strength now isn't...
Yep, and he cut this as well. I did not hear Matten say this in the clip he showed.
Flexibility, allowing them to be introduced into the game much earlier. And you know what? I'm just going to mention this here.
Yeah, he's being deceitful here. I don't even know if I want to react.
But again, this is totally untrue. They're clearly more...
because you deceptively framed that to make it seem like this is what he said. You left out some pretty good, or some key points that you should have left in. Like, that was further praising Fallout 4, man.
Powerful, but it's totally valid to completely ignore them if you so choose.
Yeah.
He also tries to make it sound like investing in energy weapons becomes this tedious task, when it's really not. If you want to make a mid-game switch, just play the game normal.
He doesn't. You can buy the plasma pistol, like he said.
And invest towards it. I did on my first ever playthrough of Fallout 1, though to big guns instead of energy weapons.
Don't care.
I proceeded through the game with little issue. Additionally, the fact that energy weapons are a mid-game item is a trade-off for speccing into stronger, more efficient weapons. John presents energy weapons as some sort of necessity for having access to the strongest weapons in the game, but small and big guns are both completely viable weapon classes. In the case of...
I don't think he does. I think he was saying, as said here, because they are. I guess. I haven't played the first two. I don't know how powerful energy weapons are. Pretty sure they are powerful.
Small guns, the trade-off is that the weapons are cheap and readily available at all times.
Not anymore. In Fallout 4, rifles and energy rifles are deemed to be the same class.
This makes me think how much more you're gonna cut without telling us.
In terms of perking,
because that makes me think that you're gonna cut more because you're gonna think, okay, well they understood it was for time the first time, so I don't need to put this in. I don't know. I don't think you did, but that's not a good way to react to a video, and especially if you're gonna be quote unquote thorough about it.
Investment. So you can transition whenever you want, with the limiting factor often being that energy weapons need a lot of rare materials to modify. But that's brilliant, because now the choice is in the hands of the player. In Fallout 1 and 2, the game just refuses to let you have an energy weapon until the mid-game, so screw you if you tag that skill, I suppose. Fallout...
And this is the last point we're going to react to, and we got timestamp here. I'll look back.
Takes a much more nuanced position. You're welcome to use energy weapons straight away, but it will take careful scavenging to find the high-tech components you need.
So tagging small guns or energy weapons in Fallout 1 and 2 was more of an investment on which part of the game you wanted to be easier or harder. With small guns, the start of the game would tend to
this has anything to do with the point he just dropped.
Be easier due to your access to them.
It says this is not a good way to react to any point. Is just by bringing in something he wasn't talking about.
But late game would be harder due to your inexperience with energy weapons. With energy weapons tagged, the situation was reversed, in which the early game is more of a challenge, but becomes easier as you start finding energy weapons to use. Yeah. Regardless, both are completely viable by themselves. There is no skill investment that is required to be made.
Especially as, at the same time, conventional firearms are much cheaper and easier to mod with common resources. And this is a good time to mention something I'd like you to try and keep in mind. That way of dealing with energy weapons, where the game gives you a lot of freedom to do things your own way if you choose to, Fallout 4 does this a lot, and more than many people seem to give it credit for. So, as I say, just bear that in mind going forward. We'll be revisiting that idea.
So this is just setting something up for later on?
Like you setting up every point he's made to put it down. So you're not doing any different, bro. So that's it for tonight. It is, as you can see, 3:26 a.m. So I'm going to call it good. I'm going to react to this more, so for research purposes, so that way I could go back and look, and if there's any new points I want to bring up or a correction I want to make, I'll do it. I am well within my right to react to this, because I just don't agree with this style, and to be honest, it's pretty deceptive. I don't know why you cut these parts out. It's just, you said for time, but I really don't know why. And you say it's for time. Your video is like 4 hours long. So anyways, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.